Steampunk is an incredibly awesome thing. You probably are aware of steampunk and don't even really know it if you don't know what steampunk is. Who here played BioShock Infinite? Did you play who played in the whole room? If you played BioShock Infinite, raise your hand. They appreciate your money. That game, which was an incredibly great game, was heavily featured steampunk. So today, for our second panel, we have the gentleman with Airship 67. Take it away, fellas.
How's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing? I hate microphones. So as he said, steampunk is getting very prevalent in the media and everything that you're seeing out there today, but it's been around since 1987. We normally discuss in this panel what is steampunk and how it came about, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and go a little bit different direction on the community that's formed out of the genre of steampunk. How many people are familiar with steampunk, know what it is? How many people don't have a clue? Normally we would talk about steampunk here and say the most general definition is that it's science fiction that happened in the late 1800s when steam power was more prevalent, and that progressed forward instead of the Industrial Revolution as steam as a main power source. So what would the world have been like for 200 years if steam took over? You had no gasoline or no diesel power. And a lot of it goes more toward the Mad Max or the apocalyptic type styles that you're seeing in the movies today. And a lot of us go that route. But we also take some things from the 1800s, like back then they thought that vampires was the big science fiction, the horror, the things of that nature. Marie Shelley did Frankenstein in the early 1800s, and to them that was science fiction. That was their Doctor Who, their Battlestar Galactica, their Star Trek. Then you had writers like H.G. Wells and Jules Verne, who did a lot of the science fiction from that area. Excuse me.
He's getting really choked up.
I'm getting rid of the dust from the flight in. But my name's Cannon Trotz. I'm captain of Airship 67. This is Rock Brown. He's my sergeant at arms on the ship and a good friend of ours who sells parts and pieces for airships. His name's
Don't
Christopher.
ask where he got them.
Yeah, don't ask where he got them because you don't want to know. We got started in steampunk back in 2010. I was a normal guy, just like most of you sitting out there, father, 2 daughters. They wanted to go to an anime convention over in Louisiana called Louisianime. So I decided, well, we'll go. I did photography and figured I'll spend 3 days over there just taking pictures and chill and let them do what they wanted to do, and we'd go on about our business. The first thing I experienced when I walked through the door was steampunk. There was a group there working on leather, talking about steampunk, and I ended up standing in front of their booth for the entire 3 days, went to every panel they had, and took over 1,500 pictures of them, and I thought, these are my people. This is what I wanted when I was growing up and just didn't know how to find it. So I got in contact with them after the convention and started learning a little bit about leather work and learned a little bit about putting groups together and thought, this is cool. I didn't realize how big of a community it was. So we got to talking to them and more groups in Texas and Louisiana and Alabama, Mississippi and Florida. And there are a lot of us out there. At one time, Texas had over 600 airships just in their state. So it's a huge community.
How large is the community in the United States?
Say again.
How large is the community in the United States?
Massive.
Really?
There are multiple steampunk groups in just about every state in the nation. A lot of people say Seattle, Washington was the home of steampunk. They started in the club scene. A lot of the goths that were growing up after they so-called outgrew goth, they decided, well, where am I going to go from here? And we've heard a lot of people say steampunk is when a goth kid discovers brown. And that's what made steampunk. The steampunk term was coined in 1987 by K.W. Jeter, who wrote a book called Morlock Nights. And it was, his publisher was asking him, well, what do you call this? And at that time, cyberpunk was out. And in jest, he said, oh, we'll just call it steampunk. And he went on about his business. Before he could call his publisher and say, hey, I was just joking, the word was already out there and everybody had started using it. So,
do you find that the term steampunk, do you find that anyone ever uses it in a negative connotation because, like the word punk? I mean, I've never heard it used personally in a negative connotation, but do people take it that way sometimes because of the word punk?
A lot of people will look down on you when you say the word punk, and then you start talking to them and they find out how cool the genre is and what it's about. Steampunk is about art and creativity and being able to express yourself in an individual manner. A lot of people say, well, you got to wear Victorian clothes, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. That's not true. Steampunk is anything you want to make it. If you say it's steampunk and it's cool, we're going to stand behind you.
I'll put it this way. I have a character that I've made up that he absolutely loves. His name is He Was. He talks like this, and he's a country boy. And he wears overalls, and he's got a sister named She Is who went away, and Mama told him to go get her, and that's what he does. He's looking for his sister She Is, because it's time for her to come back and marry cousin Elijah, because a tractor flipped on him, and he ain't as purty as he was and won't nobody else marry.
So you have a southern steampunk
I have a very, I call him farm punk, because he is a farm boy.
Farm
he rides
punk.
a flying cow.
That is definitely a new one for me. Farm punk, ladies
And
and gentlemen. Is that an actual term, or did you just make that up?
I made that up. It actually is a term, but none of it is anything like what I do. So I've claimed it as mine now, and I want to trademark it and make money off of it. But that's just personal.
And
You just made a nickel.
Yeah.
Farm punk.
And there's groups out on the East Coast, they decided they didn't want to paint their Nerf weapons to match their costumes, so they redesigned their costumes to match their Nerf weapons. They've got neon yellows, blues, greens, oranges, and the pictures are just as cool as they can be if you get out there and look at them.
That's Nerf punk. It is freaking amazing.
Yes, it is. Go ahead.
I was going to say, in costuming is easier for the Nerf punk because all of your cheap polyesters, your bright colors, you can get those a lot cheaper. But when you try to do more of the Victorian, if you try to stay true to some of the fabrics and all for that, it can be just amazing.
Yep. There's things out there you wouldn't even think you could use for costuming or for material. We've used stuff like shin guards that you buy for your kids to go play soccer in Walmart.
Shin guards make the best bracers ever.
If the armor that I've got on right now, if you look at it real close, it is a motocross chest plate that I've added leather and other things to make it into this cool armor. The hat I'm wearing is from Yellowstone National Park. It was one of the souvenir shops had it. I pulled the Yellowstone tag off of it, pulled the hat band off of it, added my own stuff, and decided to use it. So you can use just about anything you want. I've seen people raid garbage cans and dumpsters and pick up stuff and just lay it down on the table and look at it and make anything out of it. So you can use just about anything you want for your costuming. The only thing we warn you about is if you make it, you need to wear it about 3 or 4 days before you come to a convention, because you're going to be walking through this crowd of people and you're going to hit somebody and cut them, or you're going to be walking through there and all of a sudden something's going to pinch on you, or you're going to realize it takes you 45 minutes to get out of it when you've really got to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, one of the first rules is make sure you can go potty by yourself.
That's like the
can't-
first rule you learn as a kid too. It's really
Yeah, so
incredible.
it's a rule you relearn in costuming really quick.
A friend of ours was telling us a story where he was on one side of the convention and he had to go potty really bad. Walking down through the convention, and every 5 seconds somebody was stopping him to get a picture. And he said, "That's cool, you know." But it was getting a little worse and a little worse every step I took. He said, by the time I got to the restroom, I realized that I couldn't get out of my armor by myself. He said, if you ever stand in there and ask the next person through the door, "Hey, can you help me take my armor off?" It is not a good feeling.
Let's talk about your costuming for a minute. My first question is, how did you get the idea for these costumes? I think a lot of people who maybe have a casual interest in the genre or have seen it, or maybe have played BioShock Infinite, for example, have an interest in the costumes. What inspired you to make these costumes, and how did you actually come up with that idea?
I'll start and we'll work down the line. I'd always been interested in the Old West as a kid, watching your Westerns and things. We watched Little House on the Prairie every afternoon after school. And I kind of combined my costume with the Old West meets the Little House on the Prairie plains, and designed a backstory for my character who was living in the plains, and he learned how to farm, and his father was called away to the Civil War. So he was left there as the man of the house at 8 years old and had to take care of the family. So mine originated from my joy of things that happened in the 1800s that I'm interested in. I dabble with blacksmithing. I like to do leather work. I like to learn all the methods of farming and growing your own vegetables and things of that nature.
He is
So it
literally a walking encyclopedia, people. You have no idea.
So it just fit with my character that I be an Old West farmer that became a sheriff. After I got in the steampunk group, I met, or steampunk community, I met groups over in Texas. One of them is an 18-year veteran of the Texas Rangers, and he created a group called the Texian Rangers as his steampunk backstory. And as you can see, I have a badge in the center of my armor. He made me the regional commander of Mississippi for the Texian Rangers because he didn't have an outpost out here. So it goes really in depth into your storyline and your characters, and it can be as complex and complicated as you want to make it, or as simple as, I just like this. I'm going to move to the next one and let him tell you about his.
Yeah, I've actually got many characters. The one that I use mostly for steampunk is not the one I'm wearing. It's Rock Brown. He's the first mate on the airship Caspertine, who Cannon likes to beat unmercifully. He's actually just a street punk kid from England who wound up moving to France because England got a little too hot to hold him, and he got captured and pressed into the military and got tired of that and left and he's not an airship pirate, and he's not a bad person, and he doesn't do bad things.
And he's not telling you lies either.
He's not telling any lies either. Yeah.
And
He
his
does.
nose is about-
We actually took the airship, the Caspertine. If you have ever watched the movie Stardust, you will understand this part. We got the ship from Captain Shakespeare, and he cheated us horribly, and he is now leading lady in a play in England. We took this airship from a movie and made it our own, and we put all of the characters we like from different shows on it, including Jane from Firefly is our Master-at-Arms who handles the weaponry. And that's Rock in a nutshell. He's got a mechanical arm. I'll be wearing them tomorrow. It's really hot and uncomfortable and a ton of fun to wear. I will let you go next. Is that me?
I think it's you.
I'm reverbing.
Yeah. Yeah, the nice thing about steampunk is, it just lets your imagination, you can just go anywhere with it. As far as what do you want to wear, do you want to go American Wild West, which is really easy to do because guess what? Blue jeans were in period during the time of the Victorian age.
Blue jeans were invented by Levi Strauss in 1879.
I told you he knows everything.
Or you can go as sophisticated as some of the Dickens carolers that you see at Christmas, with the frock coats and the tall hats. And my normal wear is based off of a military uniform. Usually I show up in a kilt and a heavy wool jacket, but it's just too hot. I knew this one over here was going to be here, and I didn't want to drive him crazy with everything.
Oh, I missed my meeting.
But you know, I'm branching out. I'm trying to do more of the Victorian or Edwardian. So that's why I went. We've made just about everything we've made, or we know the people who actually made what we're wearing. Roxanne here, wonderful artist. Is she in
Rebecca
New
Harrison.
Orleans?
Yeah, she's in New Orleans.
She's in
she
New
has
Orleans
moved to New
now.
Orleans now.
She makes all of her hats with leather. My hat, it's handmade as well, but it's made out of buckram and covered with just fancy material. So I mean, you can, if you can imagine it, you can make it.
How long does it take you to make one of your costumes?
Well, a lot of people see our costumes and think we went to this overnight, and that's not the case. When we first started out, we'd start out with a pair of pants, a shirt, and maybe one or two little accessories and add to it. And the longer we're in it, the more pieces we make, because we're adding to it try to add to it every convention we go to. But the bracer I'm wearing on my arm, if you sit down and figured out my total time on it, it's probably the dye and the tooling and the cutting and everything, 20 hours worth of work.
Interesting. Like, I'll give a shout out to the 501st over there real quick. What's up, guys from the 501st? Raise your hand. Can you hear me? Hey. They have some awesome costumes. I know they really put a lot of work and effort into their gear as well. Do you guys appreciate, because of the amount of time that it takes you to craft a costume, people who spend 20 hours on a stormtrooper outfit, or like the Mandalorians? I know I'm friends with some folks on Facebook from Kentucky that have a really strong Mandalorian group up there, and they spend 20 plus hours on their costumes as well. When you see someone else in another genre that isn't yours, but that has obviously gone to the lengths that you have, do you appreciate that? How does it make you feel?
No, we ignore them. Absolutely
Okay.
ignore them.
We hate to be
They're just-
outshone.
yeah.
I can't take it.
Yeah, we love it. There's actually a gentleman we know that does a steampunk Boba Fett.
John Strangeway.
John Strangeway.
A steampunk Boba Fett. That's
There's
pretty
also
awesome.
Steampunk Vader too.
Yeah,
He's
there's
really cool.
steampunk Vader.
I know a gal. You guys might not know what I'm talking about. There's a blog called Cake Rex. Anybody know who Cake Rex is? Jen?
My daughter
from
loves
Cake Rex.
that.
People send in horrible pictures of these cakes that they've made, and they're really bad, and she features them on her blog. Her and her husband John are very much into steampunk, and she made a Lady Vader steampunk that is just like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Like,
Somewhere out there in the world, there is a Hello Kitty Darth Vader that is the coolest thing I have ever seen in my life.
I'm a huge
Google
fan.
it.
I'm a huge fan of Iron Man. Like, not really because of the Avengers, but like I love Iron Man. Carson Case is around here somewhere. He's also a huge fan of Iron Man. One of the coolest suits of armor that I've ever seen in person was Steampunk Iron Man. Yep. Incredible craftsmanship. I mean, I cannot imagine how long it took that guy to make that suit. Real dedication. That's what I love about this genre in particular, as well as folks from the 501st. You have to really be committed to do this. This isn't just something that you can just buy here or there and throw it together and go to a show. Obviously you guys have worked at this, and I think like that in and of itself is worth saying thank you for what you contribute to the community, but just recognizing how awesome your commitment is. I mean, your costumes look amazing, and the characters that you've built are incredible as well. Did any of you ever play Dungeons and Dragons by chance?
Gave the dungeon master fits every
That's
time
what I
sit
thought.
down.
How did that influence your character creation?
It influenced it a lot. We also have a steampunk LARP called Skullduggery. A gentleman out of Monroe, Louisiana is the mastermind behind it. He's the one that set up all the rules. and we basically roll characters very similar to the
Yeah.
D20 series and Dungeons and Dragons.
Me and Cannon might be slightly feared in Skullduggery due to things that we do.
Yeah,
We tend to disrupt LARPs slightly due to the fact
Yeah.
that we've been role playing for a long time, and so we sort of outplan other people, and things happen they don't expect, and the game masters don't know what to do with us. Someone got put in a corner for an entire LARP one time.
Yeah, I remember one LARP where they basically set me off to the side and wouldn't let me play because I was messing everything up for them.
So I involved him.
Yeah. You need to tell them that story. You need to tell them
Basically, his character got drugged by this drug in the steampunk world called yellow ether, which is made out of alpaca pee, and it makes you very happy. We are now the only dealers of alpaca pee in the steampunk world. We are the official dealers of it. We're drug dealers now in the steampunk world. Anyway, Cannon gets high off of it, and there's this thing this bomb we're trying to get rid of in the LARP, and the only way to get rid of it is to have it teleported a certain distance away from the group. So they figured out, and they're like, well, who's going to do the teleporting? So I say, get Cannon, and they all look at me and go, why? I said, because Cannon's doped up. He's useless right now. Then I walk up to Cannon, and I said, play along. I handed him the bomb and the teleporter. He spins in a circle 3 times and teleports 3 feet over to a girl. It didn't work. So then they're trying to struggle to figure out how to get it to stop the bomb because that was the only way to stop it.
We get a little creative in our role play and LARP when we do things like that.
Yeah.
But I want to reiterate that steampunk is a family-friendly genre. We will stand behind families and we look out for them. I've actually created a program I call Safe Haven, where if you're at a convention and we're at a convention and you feel harassed or threatened and you're just not comfortable and you want a safe place to go until con security can be alerted, you come to my booth. We will give you Safe Haven until the right authorities are found and brought to you so that you can feel safe and continue to enjoy yourself. So we are family friendly.
Did you guys experience a lot of that? I mean, obviously you created a group.
We see a lot of it at conventions. I'm going to use my daughter as an example. She's not been approached by anybody, but she's walking around in a Celine cosplay today. And you hear people walking through cons, and some of them don't mean anything by it, but they, man, look at the butt on that girl, or, just comments
And it's the
and
women
things.
that say it more than the guys.
But there are a lot of people out there that don't know when a person says no, they mean no. They want to walk up. It's just proper etiquette, and something else we're trying to teach in the steampunk world is bring back the morals and standards that the citizenry had in the 1800s. Hold the doors open for the ladies. Say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. Be polite and gentlemanly. Be a lady. But there's people out there, you walk up and ask for a picture, the first thing you need to ask is it okay if I put my hand on your shoulder? And if they say no, you don't do it. Some of them don't mind just, posing for a picture with you. But it's polite to ask. But we have ran into some real serious incidents where people are trying to get young ladies up to their room to take photo shoots, and it all sounds good. And when they get up there, they want to take advantage of it.
Nothing about that sounds good.
And
Not at all.
No, we don't stand for that.
No, we instigate, especially with our table, we have a battle buddy system where generally you go nowhere alone. And it goes for the men as well as the women. So
You have to watch yourself out here. All of the cons try their best to keep it safe for everybody, but you know as well as I do, in the world we live in today, people are going to slip through the cracks. And that's one of the things I love about the steampunk community. They're watching out for each other's backs and looking out for each other. I'll tell you a story in just a minute. He looks like he's needing to ask a question. You got a question over there, MC?
he's not listening. He's not listening.
All right, I'll tell you this. When I got started in steampunk in 2010, my social level, or my social life was my family. That was it. I didn't have friends outside of family. Now I've got friends in more states than I can count on both hands and both feet. And I've got people that I can call up and say, hey, I need a hand doing something. And they'll drive up from New Orleans, Louisiana, or Monroe, Louisiana, or Mobile, Alabama, and come help me. And in turn, I'll do the same for them. A gentleman was down there one day. He had to have some electrical wiring done before Monday morning so he could get the power turned on because they were being forced to move, and they couldn't get a certificate of occupancy without power being turned on and inspected. That was on Saturday evening at 5 o'clock?
Yeah, it was 5 o'clock on a
5
Sunday.
o'clock one Saturday evening. The two of us got up, got in the truck and drove to New Orleans, Louisiana, spent the night with him and got everything done that he needed done so his family could have a comfortable place to live on Monday morning. And that's what the steampunk community is about.
Let's talk about how you involve children. I know I've seen at several other conventions kids involved in this. Do you teach them how to make their own costumes, or to reference back the 501st for a minute? I know that they have a huge online support network, and they encourage their kids to find something that they're interested in. They help them build it, but it's the fact that they've built that piece themselves that's really important. Do you guys do that?
Definitely. We're all about being a builder community and teaching and passing on our knowledge to others. I wouldn't have known how to do leather work if somebody hadn't done that for me, and I'm passing that on down the line. I learned how to do it. I passed the information on to this gentleman. He learned how to do it. We do the same thing with the younger crowd as well. If there's something they're interested in, they want to learn how to sew a costume together. Well, I've got a seamstress in my crew that's more than willing to help sit down and show people how to sew. Yeah. It doesn't matter age. They can be 5, 6, 7 years old. They can be 70, 80, 90 years old. We're going to sit down and teach them because leatherworking, I've always seen leatherworking as a dying art form because people don't do it anymore. All the horse tack and saddles and things that you see in the store made out of leather, they're made in China or some foreign country, and they're made by machines or made in these big factories. A person being able to sit down and do that on his own is an awesome thing, and it's an art form that's going by the wayside. Same with blacksmithing. How many blacksmiths do you know? How many people can legitimately say they can go down the street to the blacksmith and get a door handle or a hinge made for something that you can't find anywhere else? So it is a builder's community as well, and we like to teach and show people how to make things. If there's anything at my table you see and you want to learn how to make it, ask me. We'll sit down and show you how to make it, and if you're close enough, we'll even invite you over for a crew day and give you some hands-on.
One of the neatest things I've seen is this one right here. We'll sit down at some of the little fairs, and he will set up his little leather table, and will take his scrap leather and show kids when they come up, how to do punches and how to make stamps and things like that. And they walk away and they're like, oh wow, I got this from the steampunk guy.
It is the most fun ever. The little kid, their eyes light up, and of course, as you haven't figured out yet, I kind of think I'm funny a little bit, and I have a spiel that goes along with it that the kids just love. The kids love it, and the parents love it too, because I sit there and pick on them and play with them while I'm doing it, and I have yet to have one not walk away at least smiling when I'm done with them. He's watched me do it. I can't get up when we do these things.
I physically have to drag him away and out of the chair to drink water and eat. He enjoys doing it.
I will not leave a kid sitting there while I go do something. I will sit there. They will find a skeleton sitting in that chair before I'll do that. Because as far as kids go, my kids all cosplay. My oldest son cosplays. My youngest daughter cosplays. My oldest daughter cosplays. The first costume she did, go big or go home, she made a pretty much movie accurate Belle, the yellow dress. That is amazing that she did all of it by herself. She didn't even know how to sew when she started doing this thing. And she's been wearing that thing for 3 years now? Close to it.
She's been wearing it since we met you.
Yeah, and her first actual dress was a duct tape dress.
I was going to say the
Duct
duct
tape.
tape
Duct
dress
tape,
was the
yeah,
first
the
thing I
duct
ever
tape
met her.
dress.
She had a duct tape dress on that she wore to prom.
She wore it for 3 years to the point where it was more patched than dress, and she finally had to retire it. But she loved that thing. We've still got it. She just doesn't wear it anymore.
What about questions? Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, please.
This is a fun time.
Ask.
You have a great
questions.
Loot Crate exclusive Power Ranger shirt.
I
That's
can
awesome.
guarantee if we don't know the answer, we will make it up.
I
That's
can
fine.
answer any and all questions truthfully without a problem, and it will be the correct answer.
Or a wrong answer. Anyone.
He doesn't stretch the truth.
Let's see. Let me just pick one of you at random. This will be
Get
fun
the
for
one
you,
that's
I promise.
sleeping.
Ba-da-ba-ba. You have Brooks shoes on. Do you have a question? I have similar running shoes. It's fine. Yeah.
Sure. How y'all doing today?
Fine.
Doing well.
There you go. No.
See, I
when you're
answered
doing
it right.
There you go. When you're doing your costumes, have you found yourself actually now becoming obsessed with every time you see something, you figure out what you could do as a costume?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yes, definitely.
If you start steampunk and you don't walk through Walmart and see the lamps and go, that's a cool gun barrel, that's a cool gun barrel, that's a cool gun barrel, go back home and start over.
You think walking through Home Depot, you're looking at hardware? That's our new clothing store.
Go, if you ever want to have fun, go to Home Depot or Lowe's and play the best game ever called Hat. That's where you put it on your head and you make it into a hat.
Who has a bucket on their head, right? That's not a bucket, is it?
No, this is actually
be.
made out of buckram. It's all cloth.
That's awesome.
But
Huh.
we could do something with a bucket.
Really?
I've seen people make stilts out of buckets.
I have some friends of my daughters who do like a foam LARP thing that they want me to participate in, not knowing what they're getting into, and they actually made helmets out of ice cream buckets for that.
Avengers Age of Ultron came out a couple months ago, and I saw this really awesome cosplay somebody did. They made the Hulkbuster that he already had an Iron Man suit, and he made the Hulkbuster suit that actually closed in around his Iron Man suit. I have no idea how much it cost. It looks incredibly cool. I'm sure it took him a long time. People are so creative. That's what I love about stuff like this. If you can think about it, someone can probably make it. I mean, I'm sure there are folks walking around on the floor today who have costumes that maybe they bought, and even then, they had that idea. They had the idea they wanted to be that character. Like, you over there. I saw you raise your hand. It doesn't matter that that's a blue tank top. You had the idea, and that's what's important. I mean, if you sewed it, that'd be awesome. But
One of the coolest
still.
costumes I ever saw at a con was someone did Homeless Galactus. They had the helmet, a t-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops on. They were carrying a grocery bag full of aluminum cans and had a sign that said, "We'll eat planets for work."
Homeless Galactus.
It was
That is a
Homeless
new one.
Galactus. It was the coolest thing I have ever seen in my life.
Sure. David Bowie. It's awesome.
Don't turn your back on her.
Hey there.
Hello.
So I know a lot of design elements you see commonly in steampunk include like goggles and gears. Do you ever incorporate like actual working gadgets into your costumes?
We
and maybe
love
what are
to
some
do the working
examples of
gadgets. It's a matter of making it work after you've attached it, because sometimes you break things repeatedly on accident, as far as you know. Lumi's hat.
What's
Oh,
some
Lumi.
awesome gadgets you've made?
There's a guy in Louisiana named Lumiere who has a mechanical arm that operates a camera in his hat.
And he's
And it
also a
actually works.
candlestick.
It will take pictures, and he can show you the pictures on the arm.
He could show you the pictures on the arm?
He has the camera takes the picture, and it has a little screen on the arm that he can show you the picture.
He's tore apart a digital camera,
Wow.
Yes, part
put
of
the
his
lens
camera.
in his hat, and has the screen on the back of the camera on his arm so he can take pictures and show you.
That's awesome. Huh.
But I will say, save a clock today. If you're out shopping and you see a clock that's working, especially an antique clock, please don't destroy it for the gears inside.
But if you accidentally drop it down the stairs, it's broken and it's
Now,
fair
if
game.
it's broken, it's fair game. If it does not work at all and you don't think you can get it fixed, it's fair game. But I'm a collector of antique clocks, so please don't break an antique clock just for the gears.
I've got some really cool clocks at home, but they work, and they bother me because I can't take them apart because they work. but boy, I want them to break.
Got a question over here?
Sure, let's go.
One quick word about the clocks. If you do happen to get one and you think, oh,
Beware
let
of
me
the
take
spring.
this spring out, don't do it.
The spring
Those
of death.
things are wound so tight
They will cut you to pieces,
Yes.
literally.
We literally know a man who opened up a spring of death, and he has a cool scar that stretches from here to here down his face, where the half-inch piece of spring steel that's only about 2 millimeters thick hit him in the face and sliced his face wide open.
Spring
He
of
has a
death.
cool, it looks like a rapier scar from the SCA, but the spring of death is dangerous. If you find one of those and it's still cold, you need to find a jeweler or a clockmaker. They have tools that they can release tension on that with. There's safe ways to do it. Don't risk your life taking those apart, because it could, just like the guy that got it across the face, 3 inches down, and it could have got a jugular vein. So safety, safety, safety on everything you do with all these parts and pieces.
That's a good point. We'll do our last question.
Kind of going off what you were talking about just a minute ago is like, don't destroy something.
We can't hear you.
Sorry. You were talking about the clocks. Don't destroy a perfectly good vintage clock, just for the gears, for the, for the costume aspect. So would you say that you're like in this cosplay with steampunk, it's also about a preservation of character and culture through it?
Yes, ma'am.
That's a really good question.
A lot of times people will ask us how they start their character, and one of the things we always say is, if you were living in that time frame, think about what job you would be doing in that time frame, and think about what job. Once you decide on a job, that gives you a line on what kind of costuming and clothing you need, what type of accessories you need. If you're a butcher in an 1800s town, well, you're going to need a meat cleaver, and you're going to need knives and things that meat saws and bone saws and things of that nature. You can incorporate that into your costume. Just because it's steampunk doesn't mean it's got to have a gear on it. Doesn't mean it's got to have goggles with it. Not everybody wants to be an airship captain. We have a young lady over in Louisiana. She's of African American descent, and she's done her genealogical research on her family, and she found out that her family was into slavery. So her character is a freed slave girl, and she loves it. She dresses the part, and she works at one of the airships, and she helps them out because they've accepted her in, and they took her out of slavery, and they're keeping her safe. So it's whatever you want to make it. I mean, we all have heritage and history if you look into your genealogical research, and you can incorporate that into your character and your costuming.
There's Jasmine.
There's all kinds of things going on. I was doing a little genealogical research on my side and found out I had a guy that was an undertaker in New York, and I never knew he had any family in New York. So I thought about doing a steampunk undertaker, but they probably don't want to see that. It might be more on the horror side, but people use different things. We were talking earlier, there's a fitting on Rock's costume up here. You can come up
I'll
and
put the
take-
mic to it so you can hear it.
You can come up and take a look at it after the panel, but it's basically a triangular shaped piece of metal, and it's got a small slot on top and two larger slots on the
Like
sides.
this?
And he's used it as part of his harness and in his costuming. People ask us all the time, what is that? Well, it's the breastplate
All right.
off of a horse harness that we got from Tandy Leather.
They use me as a mule in the airship, and so I figured I would go ahead and just get my harness now. Use me as a mule. I'm a pack mule.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
I'm a pack mule.
Yeah,
Don't
he-
even try to deny.
yeah, he's my
I'm a-
pack
you not know
mule.
what I am.
I got to have somebody that do my heavy lifting for
I'm
me.
a pack mule and leather monkey. I know what goes on with this
Yeah.
thing.
Let's give it up for Airship 67. This is really awesome. If you have any questions about steampunk, go see these guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we will-
come see us. You can contact us at info@airship67.com. We've got a table over on the other side of the convention floor if y'all want to come by and take a look at some of the work that we've done.
Friend us on Facebook.
Facebook. We've got an Etsy shop.
If I
we
don't-
got into this as far as on the selling side of it so that we could go to more conventions and we could spread this disease that we call steam. So that, and otherwise a family of four it costs a lot of money to go to a 3-day convention for a family of 4.
It's
So
also a great way to practice your leather because it's
Great
a whole
way to
lot
learn.
easier to make it and sell it than try to make it and keep it. Because if I kept all the leather I've made now, I would own about 9 cows, and I would be divorced and living in my truck.
But if y'all have any questions about costuming or leather or anything steampunk related, please feel free to come by and see us. We're open and we like communicating with the people out there, and we'll show you anything that you want to know. If we don't know how to do it, we will either learn how to do it to teach you, or we'll get you to somebody that already knows how to do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Give it up for them again one more
Consultation is
time.
free.
Airship 67.
We appreciate it. This is our second year at this convention. I like what I'm seeing because it's grown extremely well since last year, and we hope that it keeps coming back and keeps growing because the folks of Mississippi need something like this.
Oh yeah, we walked outside a little earlier and could not believe the line to get in was stretched all the way out to the road.
Yeah, and it's something that the Jackson area has needed for a long time. We've
Oh,
got
the
to-
line's still all the way out to the Coliseum? Huh,
Yeah.
awesome. You're in here and not out there.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, coming up next.